Yay. Chat participants. Seems like the darkness is really, really low. I can't see anything. Display. Brightness is all the way up. Okay. That'll work. Meantime, let's also do this. Blackboard. This is Crim Law. Did I put anything new in there? I did. Yes, so there's a few things we need to talk about. Let's see here. Did I already download those? Download. Intro. Outline. Download it. Learning module. I don't want the PowerPoint. Yeah, I'll grab the PowerPoint too. So we can run through that just to double check to make sure I covered everything I need to cover. Sweet. All right, let's see what happens as people roll in. I'm gonna grab some water. That's the biggest way. Taylor Jones. All right. How was everyone today? Good. Excellent. I can't believe it's Monday. Weekends, they go by faster every single weekend. Yeah, this is Crim Law. Online so far, we have Taylor Jones. This love picture, right? That's awesome. Yeah. Names. Your name. Oh, you were the first one here today. Ethan. Oh. Today, we are talking about the NSA. Only for the very first thing. Admit. What's that? Brandon. Yeah. You. You are Bailey. 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 Name Brees. That's what I thought, but I got a couple in here, and the pictures aren't the biggest. It's like blonde white female. Blonde white female. Yes. I am not good at faces or names, and that's horrible, but I will get to where I remember that. Give me like 2 more weeks. Sleep deprivation will kind of level out. You guys ever learn anything about state dependency learning? Okay. Basic concept with that. This would be helpful for all of you, actually. It's a learning thing. State dependency learning is how, if you're in a certain state of mind, certain emotional state, or even physiological, if you learn something in that state, you're more likely to remember it whenever you're in that same state. That's why if, let's say, you always come to class, you're well rested, right? Night before an exam comes, you stay up all night studying, come in, you do horrible. State dependency learning. You came in tired, you're usually not in class tired, right? So if you come into class tired all the time, you come in for that exam tired, you'd be more likely to do well, better than if you came in a different state. Very, very useful to know, because it does make a huge difference. Rise. All right, that's Cortez. Well, that's a good thing. It's just, how tired are you? Yes, I know that. I actually slept pretty well last night. Let's see. We got one more minute. See, I've got, I didn't finish roll. Simone. Yes, okay. Let's see, we've got Brees, we've got Sarah, Denise, Stefan. Let's see, where was I at? I was looking at this. We were looking for you. Just came in. You are. Do it the easy way. Welcome. Next, we got you and you. You look like, double check that. You are. You and her. And then you are still working on names. I'll get it down soon enough. Yeah. Who? Amelia. Is that what you said? Excellent. Okay. Now I don't remember which one of your names I wrote down. Elizabeth and Avery? All right. Okay. I am not good with faces. I am not good with names. I am still working on this. It will take me probably about 2 more weeks, and then I won't forget it. Unless I have a head injury. That's a different story. Yeah. Those things happen. Okay, so this is Crim Law. Things we need to talk about. So first off, I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Screen, is that the screen I want? I think so. Yeah. So did you guys get this notice? NSA is on campus today. And from what I heard is they're actually 2 or 3 rooms down this way. As soon as class is over, they'll be rolling into their next thing. I want to say it's 252 or 253. I want to say it's 252. So they're here on campus. If you can't do it there, there's Zoom. They'll be here today, tomorrow, that kind of thing. So if the NSA likes you, or you like the NSA, good opportunity. Okay, name. Laney. I would figure that out, but it would take me a while looking through this. Laney. Benny, no, you're up top. Ah, there you go. Excellent. Cool. All right. So things that are going on in the world. First, this things I opened up. Okay, so you got your Zoom link here. Part 1, part 2, quiz 1. Don't forget about that. That's due tonight. Part 3. We might get to part 2 today. We should finish part 1 today. Start rolling in part 2. We'll see how far we get. Part 3, assignment 1. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about assignment 1. This is the one where I give you a scenario, actually a couple. No, it's just one scenario. Not a real story, but it is very closely based off of a state level case I'd seen a few years back. So it's like, basically what it is, I changed the names and the locations, and otherwise that's a real story. You know, so it's like that kind of stuff happens. I think there might be 1 or 2 details I might have changed, but basically it was something really weird because a lot of stuff happened like that. So we'll spend a little time. I'll show you how to use the state legislative websites. That way you can access the statutes, that way you can cite them. Cool. Yay. Good. Get some skills there. We need to pick up our conversation where we left off. So I'll give you guys a minute to think about where we left off while I try to remember myself. And tell me what's going on in the world in the meantime. Labor Day, 3-day weekend. If you can skip class Friday, which we'd get to, that's a 4-day weekend. If you find a way to get out of Thursday, that's even better, right? A nice little vacation. Yes, that's nice. I'm trying to think about the only thing I can think of in the news. I want to say there's another hurricane. Is that correct? Ida? Is that what it's called? Something like that. Head towards Florida. So what other stuff's going on? Probably the big ticket thing that I've seen in the news was there's a lot of hubbub about a certain booking photograph. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so mugshots. So we talked a little bit about process already in here. When does that happen? Yeah, that booking stage. Yeah. Yeah, whenever they start getting ready to charge you with stuff, they'll bring you in. Yeah, get you pretty sick. Now, if you may remember, this isn't the first time he faced charges, right? He's what's the sum total of charges he faces? It's a lot, hundreds of years, which is interesting. We'll talk a little about discretion here in a second and where that comes into play. But the last time they did not do a mugshot, this time they did. You know why? Well, he's been indicted maybe a couple times now. I know he's facing charge. The most recent was in Georgia, I think, is where they actually took his mugshot. If I'm remembering that correctly, I may be wrong. He was also charged in New York. Maybe I got those flipped. And if he is not, he may face charges in DC as well. And so it's like you got multiple places he can be charged. He's already been charged before, but they never took him in and had his mugshot done. Why?
I saw at least the police chief or the chief of that station said we're not treating it differently than regular criminal.
Yeah. So you have one issue of treatment. And then the other issue, the reason why they did it before is this right here. And then we'll go off in this because it'll be built to key back into the discussion thing about discretion and prosecutorial discretion. The reason why they did it was this right here. Mugshots tend to be galvanizing. If I asked you popular mugshots, you can find artwork, you can find shirts, you can find any number of things that carry those. When I say mugshots, whose names pop up in your guys' head?
Charlie Sheen.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. That sounds way down, way down. Let me turn that back up and I'll let you guys talk a little bit clearer. And let me stop the share so you can see me walking around like I'm actually here. Is there a spotlight? Right there. Boom. That's me. Okay. You were talking before. Try to talk again, see if it's a little louder.
I said Charlie Sheen.
Yes. Okay, there we go. Tiger's blood himself. Sheen. Yes. Oh, here's another one. You may recognize that name, but anytime you see this picture, it's always like, good God, what kind of warmed over dog crap is this? McNulty, what's the other guy with the big teeth? Busey, Gary Busey. You ever seen his mug shots? Jesus, he's scary normal looking. You see him after he's been on a bender. Wow. Brett's calling me. This is my department chair. Hold on one second. Hello? I'm teaching a class, but when my department chair calls, I figure I should answer. Okay, you got it. All right. Bye. That's what happens when you're boss. Your employee's John. At least that's what you're supposed to do. Right? Okay. We got Nolte, Gary, Busey. Jesus, that guy's scary.
You want them to.
Oh, there's more up there. Tiger Woods. Woods. OJ. Who else? You guys don't like mugshots from? Yeah, we got Trump.
I mean, this key, like, take it, this key, what's his name?
Kaczynski.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an old one. I can't spell that. Kazin, I know it's got some C's in there and some, it's like Kaczynski or some weird shit. You guys recognize that name? Yeah, the Unabomber. Right? Okay, who else? There's a few. Tiger King. Yes, Ted Bundy. Okay, so we've got some measure of infamy, some measure of fame, some measure of popularity. Right? That's what you're trying to avoid, those types of things. Other people's names I could put up there. We have a Presley in here. Elvis, right? Elvis has had his picture taken. What about, here's a good one for you. Parks. That name sound familiar to anybody? Yeah, Rosa Parks. She's had her mugshot taken. That one's kind of famous. Let's see, who else? I Have a Dream. Oh, yeah. MLK. Let's think of some others. If I said, ooh. I like that hat. That reminds me of, really what it is, hair, it's getting thinner. I'm wearing a hat more often.
You said Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy, yeah. Bundy. Right?
Mountain.
Yeah. What are we getting at here? Are you starting to see how sometimes it's this? You start looking here, hell, even here. If I said, came up in the intro, I mentioned, fly me to the moon. Fly me to the moon. There you go. Some of you got it, some of you didn't. That's okay. You need to listen to more of that kind of stuff. One of the greatest times actually, I think it was up until about the 60s or 70s, the complexity of music increased, at which point in time it's been reductive. Been reducing its complexity ever since. That's something to think about. You have good feelings when you say Capone? No? We had cereal this morning. You guys have breakfast? No. How many of you like cereal? When you have cereal, what do you put on it?
No.
Do you? Well, sometimes you get, warmed over water and just dump it up. Is that nasty? Yes. That's horrible. It's a crime. Yeah. Every now and then I've done coffee, I've done ice cream, I've done throwing some cereal. It's like, oh god, that's amazing. But that's enough about that. You ever notice how milk has the little sunk in sections on it? You know why it has those? Reason why you don't drink poison when you do that. Pops out when the pressure builds. What's this guy? That's why we have that. Right? You know what he did, you know what she did. You know somebody what he did. Some of these are just kind of funny. Some are a little scary. That one could be scary. A lot of it's just famous. It's interesting, the relationship between popularity, infamy, and morality. Like I said, his name, evil. We got some good things that came about because of him. If I said this is someone who you wouldn't find a mugshot on, JFK. The reason why I mentioned that, rose to political power, very famous, very popular. Does anyone know how their family got their money? And then we'll move on back into this. No,
Like arms dealing.
close.
No.
Prohibition, alcohol. They were rum runners, essentially. They were running alcohol. That's what they did. That's how they got rich. That's how they moved into politics, and that's why they remained there. They got rich in the illegal process. Means. Good to know, right? Malcolm X, that was excellent. All right, now back to this. Today's lesson. We were talking about, we're getting close to this. So we were talking about different classifications right here. We need to probably jump back and talk about that. So we talked about the fact that felonies, misdemeanors, there's different classes to those. There's different ways that people look at it. There's different ways that it's graded in terms of seriousness, in terms of morality. And then what we have is some type of weird amalgamation of all of the above, which it really kind of is. So it's going to vary a little bit by the specific areas you're in, how things work out in terms of how it's actually directly classified. There are a lot of classifications there. There are other things that come in too. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, about that. Limitations, we'll jump up here first. So the big roles, I can't remember if we talked about this, so if we have, we'll move really, really fast. In this system, the prosecution and the judge are the two most powerful people in this process. Okay, what were their roles again? Their roles, what do they do? Rules, yeah, maybe I kind of grumbled a little bit.
Prosecution side, whether it's gonna be a problem.
Okay, are they going to charge? Yes, no. What charges? Which means you're picking your punishment. Right? I don't think we go into much about plea. We shouldn't really go too much into plea bargaining. Intro talked a little bit about it because it's just a little excerpt there. It's like 95% of cases don't make it to trial. What they do is if you do this and you overcharge, what's the likelihood someone's going to plea out? Extremely high, right? Let's say, I don't know, you guys give me a scenario where there's some violence.
So, yeah.
We gotta give me context, make it colorful, like it's Friday night, the NSU dormitory. There's been some partying, some drinking, maybe a little bit of drug use involved. Does that stuff happen around here?
No.
No, okay, so completely fictitious story, okay? No drug use, no alcohol use. Certainly no heated exchanges between people where violence may occur, right? Whatever. Okay, so our situations, we're here at NS campus. Go on. Fill out the rest. Okay, you can do that. You can do that. This is up to you guys. Make a scenario. What's that? Okay, so it's on campus. we have someone who's been drinking and driving, so they're now on campus. Are they driving through campus?
They're going
Okay.
back to the building.
They're driving back home. So they're on their way back here. What happens next? So you have nice wreck. They're drunk, a little bit standoffish. What happens next? He runs. Police are called. Is there a chase?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a chase now.
But he's on foot, so.
Say what?
Oh, so but he's on foot.
Oh, we can put him on foot. His vehicle stops working.
Yeah.
All kinds of reasons why that happens. Then let's say he's tearing through town, through campus. Let's say he's drifting real good, smacks into one of the curves, snaps an axle, right? Like that kind of stuff happens. Like you knock your whole wheel off. Like, yeah, okay, so vehicle disabled, now it's foot. Officer catches up, what happens next? Yeah, okay. Resist arrest. Ass whooping follows. And then now we're at the point at which he's under arrest. We're gonna book him. We're trying to figure out what charges will be prosecuted. What charges do we have here?
Resist arrest. He fights back, loses battle. When you know, what's it called, they were just saying?
What?
What is it called, when you just saying?
Okay, so we got DUI, fleeing the scene, evasion, resisting arrest, assault and battery. That's assault. There we go. A little inappropriate there. We fixed that. Okay, so assault and battery. We'll also have, there's a specific statute for this kind of stuff, violence against a public official. Let's see, what else do we have? Kind of conditions the vehicle in.
Damage school property.
Yeah, we have property damage. You have, of course, anything associated with the vehicle that's in bad condition, like it's no longer operable, that kind of thing. Let's say, you're gonna have your towing expenses and all that kind of stuff associated with that too. But like, let's say, you've got a few lights out, that kind of thing. You might have some tickets that are slapped on for that too. Like what originally started at that low level, light being out. Property damages, that kind of stuff. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. You could have 10, 11, 12, depending on how many different instances where there was actual contact between the officers. Like I said, there's this person's getting out of the vehicle and starting to take off on foot. Is there any contact there? Is there any contact later? Yes.
I almost forgot underage drinking if they're under 21.
Yeah, you can have, are they underage?
Do they have a license?
Good question, right? And so you can see how many charges we have right here in just this one scenario to begin with, okay? So what kind of sentence am I gonna look for whenever I go for these charges? That's another decision, because there's a range there. Am I looking for the max? Am I looking for the minimum? If I think this person's an asshole, or I just want them to plea out, we're gonna say max across everything. Right? Now, all of a sudden, you went from this one night of lacking sobriety, some really bad decisions that come as a result, and now you're facing down, well, both of these are gonna carry some years. That's gonna carry a loss of license, maybe years depending where you're at. That's gonna carry some time. That one might carry some time, that'll definitely carry some fines. We start seeing how those things stack up really fast. And that's before you get into the technicalities of the stuff that you might be doing wrong, things that are illegal that you might not realize that are illegal at any point in time. Do they carry a punishment? Maybe yes, maybe not. If they do, you can use them too. And that's just on the prosecutorial side. That's where we get the most power of any of these positions, if you have that, right? You get to pick the charges. You get to pick their charge. You get to pick what kind of sentence you're seeking after. That kind of thing. That is a lot of power. So what does the judge do? Oh, actually I brought this up because I have trouble remembering all the things I've listed in here.
They use their descriptions and within the time, like the ranges
Yeah,
of their sentencing.
yeah. So there's some let's see here. Intro, we already talked about civil criminal retro. Ooh, we'll come back to that one. Right here. Seek indictment, drop cases, reduce charge. Judge, here we go. Bail, please, if someone's delinquent, that's for juveniles. Dismiss charges, impose sentence, revoke probation, technicality stuff. They don't have nearly as much power. They do have some power right there, right? So if there's a plea deal that's offered, this person is the one who offers it. This person has to accept. So let's say I accept a plea deal where so we'll come back to let me write that up here and we'll talk about that. Plea deals in news. Have there been any in the last few weeks? Okay. Yeah, there have been. Come back to that. Okay, so let's say they offer a plea deal. Let's see, what would be a good one? I molested 2 teenagers at the local convenience store, whatever, right? Well, if you plea out, it's like, we don't know if those kids, they come from poor community. We don't really care about those kids. You're an upstanding citizen and such. I'm gonna offer you a plea deal. And for this, we're gonna say you get 6 months probation. Right? I'm on video. You can see me grabbing their junk. It's like, yeah, that's molestation charges. They're offering it. I accept it. Are we good to go? Depends on what this person says. Right? Have those been in the news? Yes, in the last 3 weeks. This one's a political one, and it right by my guy at the party. Hunter Biden in the news for plea deals. Gun charge, lying on federal forms about the fact that he's a drug user, carrying a weapon, illegally discarding that weapon, a number of other things. We're gonna plea deal. The biggest thing was probably the gun charge, right? Because you're lying on federal forms to acquire a weapon, which is a federal felony. No time served. Right? That one was in the news because the judge called it out. You know why? Judge called it out because of the agreements between the prosecution and the defendant. Were there any other agreements related to any other activities during this time period that there have been some agreements on that aren't reflected in the documentation put before the court? No. What they had done is some of the agreements that don't go before the court, they had worked in some immunities towards some criminal actions that weren't listed specifically in that document. So it's one of those things that if this person's not on their game and not watching closely, there's all kinds of evil things that can take place. I don't know if that eventually went through, but they ended up at least bringing it out into the light, the fact that foreign agent stuff that was taking place and money laundering and all that. It's like, okay, you agree to this probation, you're gonna get these immunities. At least it's now openly in the documentation rather than being buried and hidden. It's corruption. But it's all right there. If you guys aren't paying attention, you won't see it. And that's not just this one side, that's all sides. That's the way this stuff works. This person has to accept it. They don't. Well, if I've already said I'm agreeing to the plea deal, isn't that a confession?
No.
I accept a plea, but it gets turned down. We still need to have a trial. Yes. Yeah, they won't hold this against you. That was actually a question that had to be resolved over a few years. If you're agreeing to a plea deal, that is not the same thing as confession. So if they reject this, you go on to have that trial. Right? Okay. You can set bail, determine delinquency. For juveniles, juveniles are a bit different. You realize that this is in juvenile class. I'm not going to get into that too much. Dismiss charges. So there are certain things that the judge can do, certain motions that take place, that kind of thing. Usually what will happen is, you guys are familiar with the process, the trial itself, right? Who goes first? Who makes their case first? Executor. Yeah, there you go. Right, so you have opening arguments, prosecution goes first. Once they presented their case, they'll bring up a witness. Prosecution gets it first, then it's the defense, and you go through that till they run out of witnesses. You bring in the defense afterwards, they bring up their witness. They'll have that person testify. Prosecution will come in and cross-examine. That's how that general process goes, right? You do that till you run out of witnesses. With that, where was I going? I lost my train of thought. I had a couple thoughts kicking in. If I don't make my case, say I'm the prosecution, and I've not established my case by the time I rest my case and switch over to defense, motion for summary judgment. Right? Motion for dismissal. With prejudice. Well, a few times you'll like prejudice. You guys ever heard that phrase before? What does it mean?
Really do it.
Yeah. So whenever you see the phrase with prejudice, usually that means, yeah, you're prejudging, right? Meaning you can't bring these charges back. You ever see anything dismissed? That's what that means, right? Meaning those charges are gone forever. There's a few ways to get rid of charges. That's one. The other one is that can't plea deals, but that's a different story. Only do that if you got money. Okay. And what's the beeping over here? Let's see here. Boom. Nope, nobody else popping on. All right. Not really, because I'm just using this to kind of hit the topics right here. I've got the PowerPoint up if you guys want to see it, but I'm just kind of barely using it. So dismiss charges and post sentences. That's all straightforward stuff. We already talked about that. We'll get to that in a second. Parts that I missed. We talked about civil versus criminal. This is kind of important right here. So this is where we're talking about those goals last semester. This case right here, Furman versus Georgia, 1972. That is the first Supreme Court case that decided that retribution is an acceptable goal of the criminal justice system. That is a death penalty case, if I remember correctly. It's like, yeah, there are reasons that we use this that way. Already talked about that. There's the outline of the court system. I'll go ahead and share this since I am kind of running through it now. Share, yes, share. Okay. So goals right here, Furman versus Georgia is one I mentioned. The rest of these I didn't put any cases there. Don't need to know that more than you already do. We're only concerned with the judicial. Federal court system, yes. State court system. Okay, jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction. That's whoever's trying that case for the first time. Sometimes if you have something that something goes up, right? Sometimes they'll do things de novo. That term means new. So basically they're restarting it. They'll determine the facts of the case again. Remember how we had jury, witness, that kind of stuff? We had that discussion about the difference between fact and truth. Jury finds fact. The judge doesn't do that unless it's a bench trial. So those facts that are decided by the jury stand unless it's a trial de novo. Okay. Concurrent cases, multiple jurisdictions, appellant. So if you appeal something, you're now an appellant or an appellee. We already talked about sources, discretion, we finished. Talked about that. Limitations. Okay, so there are some limitations to the laws that we have that apply across the board. Right? This is a little bit different than how to argue a case or how to look at the elements of a crime and how you poke holes in it. Like this is there are problems with the way the statute was passed or the way it's written or something about its enactment implementation that's off and you can't do it that way. That's this first one. Void for vagueness basically means that the way that this is written, it is unenforceable, right? It says there must give fair notice, guard against arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement, unreasonably deny people their rights. That's must not be. That's what I'm talking about, arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. That basically means that there's so much discretion with the way this thing's written, you can't really use it. Trying to think of a good example. This first one's really easy, fair notice thing. If you guys pay attention, you'll always see, this congressional act was passed and is effective at such and such date. They usually wait like 6 months or a year. That's why. We're changing the laws. There must be a time period for people to be aware of those changes and move forward. So like if you do anything legal, let's say like a name change, right? You guys are gonna change your name outside of the process associated with marriage. Like, what do you have to do? You have to announce that in certain newspapers. Why? Same kind of reason. You want people to know that there's a change going on. Still trying to think of a good example of that one. I mean, basically what you start talking about is I don't want to use this one because I use it for stuff frisk all the time, but that would be a good example of how that was unconstitutional. When they were using stop and frisk in New York, they were only targeting people based on, well, basically racial status, because you time that in with resources and the degree of attention people would give complaints. The way they did stops and frisks is like arbitrary, discriminatory. That's one example. That's not laws. I'll have to think about that. Two good examples of that. But it's arbitrary, or if it doesn't give good notice, that's what you shouldn't be expected to know. Ex post facto. You guys probably heard that before, right? Yeah. No. Okay. See what we have. Latin, after the fact. Right. So let's say it recently came to my attention that there are no statutes associated with defecating in my neighbor's yard. Right. So I go and I take a big dump in his yard. He catches me right in the middle of it too. I'm waving to him. I do my best to go. So he lobbies his local representatives and they pass a law that says you can no longer take a dump on somebody's yard, right? Am I in trouble for what I've already done? No. Wasn't a crime. Right? If I do it the next day or the day after it's effective with that window for fair notice, yeah, I'll get in trouble. This is one of those times where one of those few times where you say ignorance isn't an excuse. This is the one place where they work that in. Once you get past that window, you need to know, even if you're not aware of it, you're still responsible for it. But if they change, you do it before it's illegal, it's not illegal, it can't come after for that. That's a major change from a historical standpoint. Okay. And alter definitions or inflict punishment without a trial. It's Bill of Attainder. Repeals and amendments, that's supposed to say statute, no, it says statute. That's all statute. You guys are familiar with prohibition. That's probably the clearest example of this. Like that's not very, very common. Cruel and unusual punishment, you are all familiar with the 8th Amendment. It says here difficult to find. Yeah, it's not really easy to find. I mean, it would be easier to identify. Okay, if I said, what constitutes cruel and unusual punishment? I could probably have you guys give me a list of stuff and be like, okay, what are these considered standard prison conditions? Which of these are not? Take really bad care of our people. Does that mean it's better? Which is needs a little bit more balance. Proportionality is usually where it comes in at. Proportionality, basically just means that the punishment you fit is associated with the crime that you did, right? You need to balance. It is the main reason why rape no longer carries the death penalty. Till 1970s it did. There's also been some changes to the definition of rape. We'll get into that when we get into that chapter, section, topic, whatever. And then most importantly, right here, torture and unnecessary pain are not permitted. Okay, due process, equal protection. You guys are familiar with that. Right to privacy. And there's a little bit about that in there because it comes up a lot. It's very important, particularly more for the policing side of things in law. But that right to privacy, basically what that is it's not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. There are a lot of rights that are like that. But if you look at, it mentions here, the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth, and Ninth Amendments, there you go. That specific case here is a federal case, Griswold versus Connecticut, and it outlines, basically it's the actual wording that identifies these amendments as the right to privacy. Already talked about that. Already talked about proof. Determining criminal culpability. This one we should take a second to talk about. So we've already talked about the whole thing about the process, right? You have those three outcomes. What were they again? For the trial, what are the three outcomes? Guilty. Yeah. Mistrial. Well, we'll get to the nullification. Right? So guilty. Moving into corrections, not guilty. You go free, no further charges related to these, no further trials related to these specific charges. Mistrial, you go back and start again, right? Okay. This one right here. Jury nullification. They may refuse to return a guilty verdict despite everything being substantiated. That is your choice. As citizens, as people in that area, if there are laws that you feel should not be enforced, it's your choice. You get one person who decides that those charges shouldn't even exist as criminal charges, here. Got a strong enough argument, you would do. They'll never tell you about that. If you're a juror, they will never tell you about this. Why? They want you to do the job. If everyone finds out they don't have to enforce any laws whatsoever, guess what? It's a whole lot easier to sleep at night if I'm not punishing someone I don't know for something I have no idea about, having to listen for a day or so to people give their testimony about stuff I wasn't even there for. Right? It depends. It depends. For the most part, you're talking 12 jurors and unanimity. Some states, they don't require unanimous, but they require a certain percentage. It's like you got 12 people. I think it's was it simple majority was 9. I don't remember off the top of my head, but as a general rule, it's 12 and it's unanimous. There are a few states that don't, but usually it's unanimous. So get that one person in this trial. You don't have enough for a mistrial in the states that have, well, I guess I should say, if you don't have a majority for the states that have, that don't require unanimity, then you'll probably end up with a mistrial rather than a not guilty verdict. Or I should say, you'd be more likely to end up with a not guilty than a mistrial, just because of the fact that if they're using that, there's some arguments made about that. I'm kind of topic in the circle now. Got me on topic. It's one of those things that usually you'll end up with a mistrial. If you got someone who's doing this, you won't end up everyone doing it unless it's a really, really, really big issue. But the flip side of this is the nullification aspect of it relates exactly to what I said when we were talking about actors. That just means if I can get you to hate the person enough, you might convict them anyway. You're the ones who's determining what actually happened, even though there is something that actually happened. You, if you're a juror, will be the one who gets to make that decision. You can be cruel if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it because it's a system we're all part of. Okay, and it looks like that covers everything in that chapter we needed to talk about. So the next thing I need to show you is a state legislative website. We got about 8 minutes, so we'll spend the rest of the time doing that. All right. So how many of you have been on the state legislative website? You guys are breaking my heart. Okay. Oklahoma State Legislature. Okay, it's been a while since I've been on this one. I'm more familiar with the Arkansas one because I've only done this a few times here in Oklahoma. But it's usually pretty easy. So you can see okay, home, legislature, Senate, House, whatever. Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. Photos, Senate, House, find my legislator. Here you go. Basic bill search, that kind of stuff is good if there's certain things that are going on. Constitution, browse Oklahoma statutes. Right here, search Oklahoma statutes and Constitution. Usually just statutes is enough. You'll see that these are sorted out into titles. So each title is, you can think about it as each title is really its own book, right? This is the book on abstracting or agriculture, those things. Basically what you need to come down here is when you look for criminal law, which is, there's procedure, crimes and punishment 21. As we're moving through this, sometimes we'll jump outside of Title 21. For example, I start talking about drug use or drunk driving and that kind of stuff. It's like those are in a different title. Let's see, juveniles are up here, children are up here. So sometimes your statutes that govern child abuse will be in here rather than down here under criminal. So it's one of those things that it is a bit of a mess because some states will not do it the same way as others. So you have to spend a little bit of time to get familiar with it. But if you go in here to 21, it brings up a PDF. What we should do is download that, almost 700 pages. And we'll just say for home statutes. We'll say today is the 28th. Okay. Now open that up. Let's say I'm curious about murder. It'll take a minute to think. Now you can do word searches. That's a whole lot easier than having to scroll through all of these code titles to figure out what section is what on where. And they won't always be grouped together. Right? Usually the artists where we find like the murder, all the statutes related to homicide are in one section. They're not always like that. Sometimes you have to do word searches, sometimes you have to look around. But it will tell you the exact statutes. Let's say murder, you can see there's a whole bunch of them that kind of pops up right here. Scroll down there. I think this is aggravated assault. Persons in custody. Placing body wastes and fluids upon government employees. If there's a statute on that. You guys reading that? Can you read that from there? Probably not. It says persons in custody placing body wastes, fluids upon government employees or contractor. In any manner places feces, urine, semen, saliva, blood upon the. So that's its own statute. That means there had enough of an issue. They created a statute for that, right? Touching. Okay, I thought we were looking at murder. Here we go. Medical battery. Nope, still not there yet. Punishments for the assaults with intent to kill. So you start getting overlap between these things. Dueling is a felony. That's why we stopped that. That started in 1910. Assault with the intent to commit a felony. Here we go. Homicide. Now we're finally getting to homicide, different types. And then it goes through each of those. And so whenever you cite it, you'd say, this is a little weird that they do it like this. Most will do it instead of like that. They'll cite their statute as, I don't see word anywhere. Instead of looking like that, usually what they'll do is they'll do that little section sign. Will do what? 21 statute 692. So, the exact one. And that's the one for this right here, the classifications of homicide. Right. And so you get familiar with this website. You'll have an idea for what's going on around you in your area, the people you vote for, if you vote. And you'll know to some degree. Hey, here are the statutes. It says search. It'll let you search some too. I'd much rather just download that thing and do the word search myself because it'll pull up better things. For example, if I said version 1, find version. I know it's going to be in there a lot. Find 1, 3. Get out of, there we go. All right. Like this right here. What that means is at the time that this was posted up, there were 2 different versions. Could be an old version and a new version. Could be 2 versions that were currently being debated whenever it was published. It's like, these are things that as you're pulling these things up, you need to look, you'll need to read, you'll need to figure out, okay, which one of these is the real statute? Not immediately clear. And that will get you started for assignment 1. Read the story below, identify the crimes against person, crimes against property, and their elements, which will require you to navigate those statutes. If you have questions, let me know. When it comes to the versions of stuff, don't worry about that so much. Make sure you read both versions if it has those on there. And then you can pick one. I really am more concerned about that you cite the actual correct statutes and that you get the elements of it, the crimes. And they'll outline quite specifically, as you can see here. It's like, okay, so punishment, that's punishment. We'll say rape by instrumentation in the 1st degree includes A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of those, right? So those are all elements, all things that need to be substantiated for someone to be found guilty of that crime. Cool. Now, so I know this was more of a lecture than a conversation. We'll do more of a conversation next class, but we had to do some catching up. So we're on path. We are moving forward. And with that, I will see you all Wednesday. Have a great day and have fun.
So
Yeah.
for one assignment, do you want it to be like just like a list
Oh, I don't care.
of statutes that apply to it?
Yeah, I don't care. Basically, what I'm looking for is that you like outline like, okay, so-and-so is smoking pot while shooting a gun. And they're driving while drinking. You know, it's like, okay, so you got the DUI, you got the alcohol intoxication, the drug use, you got the presence of a weapon, the unlawful discharge, the presence of drugs and gun. And that's just like one line of that one story. And so if you do that, I don't really care about the format. I just so long as you do your best and I'll go through them all within class.
I need you to even like paragraphs, like writing it.
Not for this ones, but all right. Bye.